everyone, it's Jennifer. If you've watched my videos before, you know that I love to find ways to take products and use them creatively and stretch them and get more use out of them. Today I'm going to show you how to get more out of your die cuts by doing dry embossing with them to create a dry embossed background. I actually have a couple cards I'm doing, they're very similar, but on both of them you can see on the background piece there is a dry embossed pattern that I created with die cuts. Now there are many ways to do this and I will talk about some of the other ways, but I'm going to share with you today my favorite method. When dry embossing with die cuts, you need to cut with something that's extra thick and extra firm. I choose to use magnetic paper from Hudson. So this is actually magnetic. It's what I use for my die storage, but there are many uses for magnetic paper. And one of them is this that we're doing today. Because it is extra firm and extra thick, it's perfect for dry embossing. So I am die cutting this with my new dies from Ellen Hudson and Julie Ebersol. These are like scribble flowers. And you can see how easily the magnetic paper cuts with these dies. Now, if you don't have magnetic paper, you could try using chipboard for this or several layers of cardstock. But I find that something like this magnetic paper is extra strong and extra durable, so it actually embosses better. And you can save these pieces and reuse them over and over again. Since I want to do an entire background of this dry embossing, I needed to cut several flowers and several leaves. So after I've done that, I'm just going to pop the little pieces out of the center and look at those gorgeous pieces. These are beautiful as is because they have a nice shiny but matte finish to it that is really unique and different than cardstock. So let's go ahead and create the embossed background. To do this, you need to put your die cut machine to whatever platforms or plates that you use for using an embossing folder. For the Sizzix machine, I'm going to go to tab 1 that you see here, and then you'll see the sandwich that I'm going to use. For the Cuttlebug or other machines, just do this as you would an embossing folder. So I have my first cutting plate down, and then you need a few shim pieces. I just did 3 pieces of cardstock, but you'll have to play around with your machine to see which works best. Then I have an embossing mat. This one here is from Spellbinders. I know My Favorite Things has one, and there are a few others on the market. But it's basically like a firm foam mat that is perfect for all kinds of dry embossing. And I've done videos before using this, and I'll link to some of those here. Now, if you don't have this, you can try using fun foam or a couple pieces of felt, and you'll get a similar look, but not as defined as you do with this mat. It's definitely worth the investment. Then you take whatever cardstock that you want to use for this. Here I'm just using some light blue cardstock. It doesn't matter what weight. And then I'm going to place all my magnetic paper die cuts down on top of the piece of cardstock. You can arrange these however you want. You could do just a couple flowers and couple leaves, but I decided I wanted to cover an entire background. Now, after you have these arranged, I found that it's best to take a piece of typing paper that's just cut in half and lay that on top carefully before you put your cutting plate on. This keeps any of those pieces from shifting as you put the cutting plate on top. And I also found that sometimes my cutting plate has little tiny pieces of paper or like adhesive on it, or it's just dirty, and this helps to keep your paper clean. So after I've run that through, you can see that those magnetic die cut pieces press into the paper because we have that mat behind it. And look at that beautiful impression you get. So you could take any of the die cuts that you have and press in like this. Another thing you could do is put ink on each of these magnetic die cuts before you put it on the paper, and then when you run it through, it presses the ink in like a faux letterpress. But I decided just to go for the dry embossing look. Now for this second example, instead of cardstock, I'm using watercolor paper. This is Tim Holtz watercolor paper. Watercolor paper is beautiful for this technique because it has that extra special texture to the paper. And it almost looks like a letterpress paper. Now, if you have letterpress paper, it would be perfect for this also. And look at the beautiful dry embossed impressions that you get using those die cuts. And again, as I mentioned, you could use other things besides the magnetic paper to do dry embossing. Just find something extra thick and die cut it. However, some thick things are hard to die cut. The magnetic paper die cuts beautifully and also dry embosses beautifully. So that's why I wanted to show you that today. Okay, so now let's do our greeting. I have die cut a circle here. This is a little bit smaller than 2.5 inches, just white cardstock. And I have this new stamp set from Julie Ebersol and Ellen Hudson. I love the greetings in this stamp set. They're just so fun and playful. This one says "You are my favorite," and I'm actually making two of these. Both are for one of my teenage daughters and one for my other teenage daughter, and I think it'll be funny if they compare and see that I sent them both a card that says "You are my favorite." Anyways, so I am going to add some silver sparkle embossing powder onto this, and then I will heat set it. I always let my heat gun get good and warm before I bring it to the paper to prevent any kind of warping. And I thought that the silver sparkle embossing powder would be really fun on this card since it's pretty basic color combination. I just have white, black, and the pool color. Now that I have that heat embossed, I want to cut off one edge of this because I'm actually going to have the circle kind of look like it's hanging off the edge. So I'm just holding it up against the edge to kind of plan where I want that to be, and then I'll cut along the edge just to cut off the extra circle. And now I can play around with where all these pieces are going to go. I decided it'd be good to figure out what the rest of my embellishments would be before I glued it down. And I decided I wanted some silver hearts to kind of tie everything together. But I wanted them to be covered in silver sparkle embossing powder, just like my greeting. So I'm taking some Versamark ink and pressing it onto some white cardstock, just in a small area, adding some of that same silver sparkle embossing powder, and then I'll heat set it. So now I have basically my own glitter paper that will perfectly match my greeting. So after I've heat set this and let it cool for a few seconds, I'm just going to go ahead and die cut this with this memory box heart die set that I have. Any heart dies would work here. You could use circles if you wanted to, but this will die cut beautifully through my machine, and I'll have a few different hearts to put on my card. At this point, I decided I also wanted a strip of paper with that same silver sparkle embossed look. So I took some Versamark and I rubbed it all along the edge of a piece of white cardstock that's the same width as my card. And I'm putting on the sparkle embossing powder again. I could have done this when I did the die cutting of the hearts, but I hadn't thought about it just yet. So I'm going to go ahead and heat set that. Then I'll use my trimmer just to cut a thin strip from this. I love putting thin strips along cards because I think it's a great way to give kind of a defined edge. And this will really help ground that circle that we're going to put along the edge too. So now that I have my strip ready, I'm just going to go ahead and put some adhesive on the back of it and glue that onto the embossed background that we created earlier. By the way, I did trim off a little bit from the side of our embossed background. So that blue piece right now is, 5.5 inches tall by 3 3/4 inches wide. As I start to glue these down, you can see how that silver strip really helps to anchor that portion of a circle that we've created here. I'm just using regular adhesive to glue some of the magnetic die cut shapes onto our card. Now you could save these and use them for future dry emboss projects, but I thought it'd be fun to include a few of these die cuts on my card because I really like the kind of slick but matte finish the magnetic paper gives. For a little bit of dimension, I decided to add the hearts with some dimensional adhesive. So I just took some of my favorite foam tape and I cut down tiny little pieces and put that on the back of the hearts. Now I will say that I will go back with my favorite liquid adhesive, which is multi-medium from Ranger, and I'll squirt a little bit of that underneath the hearts too, just to be sure that they don't come off when they go through the mail. There's one part of this card that's hard to see in the video. On the black that sticks out on the side of the note card, I actually did some clear embossing. It's really pretty in real life. So I'm putting down some anti-static powder along the edge of a black note card that I created. This is top folding. And I'm going to stamp the leaves repeatedly with Versamark ink. So you see this stamp set? This is also a new one from Ellen Hudson and Julie Ebersole, and it matches the dies that we use perfectly. I love how we can pull it all together. And actually the dies look like they line up and fit the stamped images, so you can stamp and die together. So I'm just going to repeatedly stamp the leaves with Versamark ink. Another advantage of putting that anti-static powder down first is I can see where I have stamped. Otherwise, when you stamp Versamark on black ink, it's kind of hard to see where you have stamped when you go to stamp the next one, and this prevents from overlapping the ink. So after I've stamped all of these, I'm going to take some clear embossing powder. This is from Hero Arts. Shake that along the edge. It doesn't matter that I didn't cover the whole card because only the edge will be showing. And then I will heat set this. And then we get this gorgeous tone-on-tone shine that really you can't see in the pictures or in the video. You just got to see it in real life. It's really quite pretty. Once it's cool, you can just rub away that powder and nobody will ever know it was there, and it really is helpful when you do your embossing. So there you can see the shine that you get along the edge of the card. So now I'm going to take my panel and I'm going to add this to the card. However, I want to put some dimension behind it. So I'm going to use a piece of white fun foam. This is just craft foam that you can get at a craft store. I've cut this slightly smaller than our blue panel, and I'll glue that there, and then I will glue this onto the card. You could use foam tape if you wanted to, but I found that if you use the fun foam, it lasts through the mail better because it doesn't get squished. So now you can see all the dimension we have going on this card. We have the dry embossing in the background, the heat embossing on the edge, and the magnetic die cuts on the front. It's really fun to see how they all shine and catch the light differently. Now, it was at this point that I was looking at this thinking that I wanted to add something else to it. I wanted to add some vellum behind my circle. Now, it turns out that this didn't really make a big difference, but I wanted to show you what I did. So sometimes I do this. I'll end up looking at a card and deciding that it's just not right. So this is what I do. I take a picture of it with my phone so I know how to put it back together again. And I'm going to take this apart gently. Thankfully, the adhesive I use allows me to do this. Take it apart gently, and I'm going to add a vellum circle underneath it. Now, I used this memory box circle stack die set. So I just took the die that it was one size bigger to cut the vellum circle. And now I'm going to glue my circle on here and then cut along that edge. Again, you could skip this part if you want to, but I wanted to show you that sometimes you just kind of step back and look at a card and it doesn't feel right and you kind of want to add something to it. The trick is to take a picture of it with your phone so that once you've added whatever you want, you can assemble everything together how you originally had it, if you were happy with how it was done originally. So now I can look at that picture to put all these pieces back on. And although the addition of that vellum circle really didn't make that big of a difference, it was something I really wanted to try and I'm happy with it. Sometimes you just got to change things to feel better about what you have. Okay, now I did two cards. You saw me do the blue card, but I did the white card. It's very similar. This time on that one though, I used a black heat embossed greeting. Okay, so then I decided to add a few gems to this. So I used some Hero Art smooth gems, and that's all it took. So both of these do have that clear embossed border that ties everything together. I really like how you can take your stamps and dies and use them creatively to get completely different looks. Now, if you're interested in the products I used in this video, please be sure to check out the YouTube description below, or you can head over to my blog at jennifermcguireinc.com, where I'll have much more information and links to some other videos. Thanks for stopping by, and if you found this helpful, please give it a thumbs up so YouTube knows you want to see more from me. I'll see you again soon.